Tomb Raider 3, the finale to the original trilogy and arguably the most experimental, complicated and controversial game in the classic series, giving us 5 distinct locations that we can tackle in almost any order we wanted. But with this freedom came a brutal learning curve. Tomb Raider 3 is home to legendary highs and frustratingly famous lows, which can differ for everyone. Apart from London. Everyone hates London. In this video, I'm going to be ranking and reviewing each level in depth as a first-time player, revisiting the franchise through the remaster collection, as well as talking about what I liked and didn't like in the game compared to Tomb Raider 1 and 2. I would consider myself a newcomer to Tomb Raider, returning to the franchise many years after helping my dad get through levels or casually playing and never finishing in the 90s and early 2000s as a kid. And I'm rediscovering the series through the remastered collections. Before I go into each level in detail, let me preface that I have many thoughts about the remastered game generally that I'll cover at the end. Since we have the remastered collection as well, it's arguably the most complete and accessible way to play nowadays, so I'll also be including the levels from the game's expansion, The Lost Artifact, in this ranking. For reference, I started this playthrough in March 2025, a year after the remastered release in February 2024, and just shy of 30 years after the game's original release in 1998. I don't claim to know this game inside and out, it's literally my first time playing it, don't come at me, okay? And of course there's only one level missing from my ranking list because of this. All Hallows. So this level is only unlocked when you get every pickup, which of course I did not achieve as a first timer, and maybe I'll take on that challenge for a future playthrough. But before we start with the worst level in my eyes, let's start with the intro. And as should be glaringly obvious, I will be spoiling the game, so if you haven't played before and you want to go on with fresh perspective, you have been warned. The game opens with a cutscene with something crashing into a jungle with several creatures being engulfed in the flames. Then it shifts to present-day Antarctica where a team appear to be drilling for something. We're then introduced to Willard, and although he's wearing the Scottish flag on his jacket, I did not really buy the accent and discarded it as something else.
It's all going swell, sir.
And I say this as a Scottish person, so, you know, he's already an imposter. Willard zooms off to another site where we're shown several moai, so the heads that you typically associate with the Easter Island. Set within the snowy landscape, the camera pans to a grave for Paul Caulfield marked with a cross. Anywho, this really doesn't tell us much, and then the game plonks us in India. Why India? We don't actually know until the cutscene after the first level when Lara speaks about the Infada Stone. Of course, at this stage, I don't know what this is, and I'm assuming Lara wants it because, you know, she's a Tomb Raider. Collecting artifacts and old shiny things is just like her thing. This is an example of a criticism I have of the core design trilogy, the vague lore. It's not explicitly stated why we're doing anything until the game establishes a semblance of a story through various cutscenes and seldom environmental clues as we progress through each level. But for me, someone who loves lore and a general sense of purpose, partly so I know I'm not wasting my time, Tomb Raider 3 didn't do enough to hook me in, so I found myself bouncing off the starting levels hard as I didn't know what I'm aiming to do. We'll touch on it more than a few times throughout this video because the game's level design does a great job at nudging you in the right direction, but I don't have a reason to care about Lara or what she's doing. Yet. If I didn't have the small bits of knowledge and the nostalgia from 20 odd years ago and the love of Lara as a character, I probably would have called it quits after the first few levels, something I feel like a lot of gamers will relate to, especially in this modern age. This gap in my knowledge could have been plugged by some lore somewhere. Now we have fast, reliable internet connections, but that wasn't always the case. The booklets that you used to get with physical media probably covered at least part of that gap in that Tomb Raider lore and made you a little bit more familiar with the controls. I, for one, would have loved a digital copy of the booklet available in the remastered game, and I have really fond memories of the excitement of picking up a new game, reading that little booklet on the car on the way home, sometimes only being able to glimpse a little sentence at a time or a small little image when passing under streetlights. It's not quite the same, but it could help newcomers or casual returners, especially as physical media becomes less readily available and at times eye-wateringly expensive. Or is this a modern phenomena? We need a little bit more context as to why we're doing something so we can decide if it's worth our time or not, because we have what feels like unlimited choices now. I haven't played enough older titles in my adult life, so I can't answer those questions for sure, as my gaming memories at that time is mostly in deep storage and I was a kid at the time, so I'm sure I'd have different feelings now as a leveled up kid. With all of that out of the way, let's get to the level ranking. Number 26. Thames Wharf. Thames Wharf sees Lara return to her home country and introduces us to that wonderful time that is London. Yes, that was sarcastic. I made the mistake of going here straight after India, which is cruel, with minimal guns, very little understanding at that point how the game differed from the first 2 entries. In the caves of Kaliya, we get a hint at London at the end of the cutscene, so I took that really quite literally. I ended up googling a bit and restarting after India and Nevada as is the intended route to progress through the game. London's a stark contrast to those earlier levels. The industrial setting with darkness everywhere, the howling wind and battering rain are realistic to a typical British winter's night, and not exactly remarkable. The shadows and gloom make the level extremely challenging, paired with tanky guards who hit hard. We start off high in the rooftops with a tantalising view of St Paul's Cathedral across the way. Impossible to get to from here. Exploration is generally unrewarding and any small bits of progress require significant backtracking. So you better hope Lara's got her platforming shoes on. There's a relatively easy secret near the crane, but this falls into the meh category. A medipack and a missile. Whoop-de-doo. After you've crossed to the other side, maybe you've got into the crevices with some ammunition as your reward. The problem is getting out. The first time I came across these, I devised a way to jump out head on and keep Lara alive, then climb all the way back up to get to the next one. Yeah, no wonder I didn't gel well with this level. I'll cover this now since it's relevant, but my first cardinal sin was playing this game and not starting off in Lara's home. I just figured the controls would be kinda similar as the first 2 entries, but boy was I wrong. This installment had new controls like crawling, sprinting, and shuffling backwards out of holes. Yeah, that would have come in kinda handy for this section, although the shuffling is more convoluted on modern controls. But enough guides and it'll get you through. Eventually you'll come across a building's interior that is again pitch black, which comes with harpoon ammo, save crystals, flares, and a medipack. Oh, and rats, very apt for London. Kill the guard at the back and you'll get the floor room key. Thank goodness for that. Wait, where does that go? The relatively easy sequence in the building is played with where this damn key went. After you flick the switch at the painter's platform, we get a glimpse of where it should go, but I still struggled to know where the hell it could be. I took out all the enemies at ground level on both sides of the building and nowhere else to go. Finally, guides to the rescue. Again, there's a well-hidden crevice and a dark tunnel once you get past the painter's platform. It was never this dark in the original though, which adds to the argument that the game should have brightness sliders. The remaster actually made some areas so much more difficult to navigate because of this. The level unfortunately doesn't end there. The gift of London keeps on giving, this time with tunnels and water tanks which again contain convoluted back and forth, various rooms, pushing buttons, annoying blaring alarms, pulling levers, a confusing spicy robot, and slightly different guards who protect London's water supply. Or conspire to take over the world, I don't know. And it still doesn't end after we swim through a long passageway, which brings us to the best part of the level, the cathedral. There isn't really much in the cathedral, but the level has been frustrating to the point I'm glad to see it come to an end. And yet the mystery continues. Why is the cathedral partially flooded? What does the secret cathedral key do? Actually, we do have an answer for that. So according to several Tomb Raider forums, this key was designed to actually enter the bonus level of All Hallows, but it ended up being a secret and requiring all pickups to access the level instead. Why it's flooded though, I don't know, but the end cutscene is one of my favourites in the game. Mostly because the sniper looks like Guy Fieri just before he's due to film Drive-Ins, Dine-Ins and Dives. Lara retaliates at his fire and they soon get close enough to discuss that he works as a hitman for Sophia Lee. Something his family has been doing for generations. Sophia though is in her 20s, 30s, so Lara isn't convinced he's telling the truth, although I didn't catch on at her age. I thought he meant his family had been working for her family for generations. Lara continues distracting him until he's backed into the Ringing Bells path and is sent flying across London, which concludes the level. It's a shame Thames Wharf ends on such a lore high note. The frustrating level design just really brings it down. Number 25, Aldwych. 82 pickups, 10 secrets, 55 kills, 16 crystals. No third artifact.
Did you get that one, Bart?
Hell no.
The level begins with Lara free falling in a black hole. If you're not quick push and grab during the fall, then you'll miss some shotgun shells, or the shotgun if you didn't pick it up in an earlier level. After navigating through some straightforward areas, you'll come across the unmistakable corridors of the London Underground. This setting is inviting, almost like you're there, especially if you've travelled in London before, but I really wish I could say the same about the actual level, which is, at best, a pain in the ass. And at worst, it gives you a bloody migraine trying to navigate or decipher what your next objective is. If you look closely enough at the humanoid enemies' jackets, you'll see that they're called the Damned, who aren't too difficult to manage with the pistols. A classic case of their bark is worse than their bite. Usually when a guy is carrying a gun or a flaming baseball bat on the underground, it's usually a bad sign, but not for Lara. There are a few different routes in the main ticket office, which is true to the real underground, either up the climbing wall, through the red girder room, or just following the stairs. And this is where things start to get confusing. The two platforms seem different enough that they're easily identified from one another. But once I got onto the tracks, my memory of what was where just totally went out the window and the maze began, plus the endless amounts of backtracking starts. Shout out to the sound designers though, the dulcet rumble of trains are realistic and points are given for the hilarious ragdoll physics. The Red Room becomes our best friend, visiting it numerous times and it's a goldmine. Explore thoroughly enough and the Uzis will be in your grubby little hands, finally. Then onto the drill room, where you need to be sharp to get past the sloping ledges and breakaway tiles and get all the pickups, which to be honest I wasn't in dire need of, the previous levels had stocked me up pretty well. Although my advice would be to you to always attempt to get as many flares as you can. You need them almost constantly in this level with the pool lighting. After another girder room, we open up the trapdoor in the red room so we can get back into the ticket office and through we go again. You'll do this several times as it's a crucial key in the drill room which you can't get the first time round, but the game gives you no reason to go back there, so good luck with finding it. Speaking of keys, we need even more to open the maintenance door on the non-holy platform, which again we'll need to backtrack to as you probably didn't realise that you could push a block before you came into the ticket office and climb up it. And because you love backtracking so much, there's also a puzzle of 3 time doors that requires even more back and forth to get to see what's inside each of them. Sticking the maintenance key in drops an old penny at the other side of the platform because honestly, I was giving up hope at this point. It's obvious now, but fatigue had removed my ability to think why the heck I have money. You have a very specific, nice machine at the ticket office to receive a ticket. Lara can jump over any barrier and ain't getting on the freaking train. Just why? But that's not all. Once you find the entrance to the Masonic Temple, which comes complete with a button maze, yay! Then you'll finally discover where to put Solomon's keys. The maze isn't too difficult to brute force, but at this point I had only found one key and not the one at the top of the drill room, so I was absolutely stumped. I do need to shout out the Masonic Hall because it is actually a really cool setting and I wish we had some more story surrounding why it was there. It's a shame because this level has really interesting spots to check out and it's really let down by how intricate and cryptic progression is. After all this, we're still not finished. Once you get further along, you'll come across another platform and a fancy train that undoubtedly does not belong on the underground. You can make a break for their level exit once you're through, but curiosity got the better of me. A cutscene plays when you hit a button showing a door on the other side of the level that's opened. And of course I was stupid enough to take the bait and softlock myself out of getting to the level end at this point, and I was forced to go and investigate that open door to get it back open. And then breathe a sigh of relief as the level ending cutscene plays. Falling through yet another hole, Lara finds herself in the Lair of the Damned, who are definitely not Freemasons. Their leader questions if Lara is after Sophia Lee, but suggests that she's clearly not because her face isn't messed up. He explains he no longer has a face after working as a supposed lab assistant for Lee's cosmetic company. A deal too good for him to pass up. In reality, he was kept prisoner in a flotation tank being slathered with stinky syrup, resulting in decomposing flesh. When Sophia thought they were dead, she disposed of the bodies via a chute that brought them down to the depths of the Aldwych station. He has tried to take his own life, but he can't even end his suffering and confirms that Sophia used them as test subjects for immortality and takes the best results for herself. This links back to Guy Fieri in Thames Wharf, who's been working for Sophia for generations. The Dam Leader wants to help Lara get to Sophia, but not before Lara delivers them some embalming fluid from the Natural History Museum to help with their rotting flesh. They haven't done this themselves, as they're wary of an Egyptian in the Natural History Museum who's jealous that she didn't get immortality the way that the damned have, and is ready to curse him. This doesn't actually lead anywhere, but according to the Tomb Raider forums member LCTRF, this is more cut content. Aldwych is just another example of fantastic storytelling let down by the torturous level design. Number 24. City. At long last we get to round out the London levels with a boss, as is standard, although this is one of my least favourite boss fights in the franchise. The fatigue from the previous London levels had me yearning for something special, a fun cutscene, anything really to have made this pain worthwhile. We again continue straight from where we left off in Lud's Gate and Sophia's office, complete with a gorgeous looking aquarium in the remaster. Almost as soon as we enter the main arena, the boss health bar appears and our mission is clear. Take Sophia out, which is easier said than done. You quickly realise that 1, shooting her does absolutely nothing, and 2, her firebombs could do huge amounts of damage, and 3, climbing the rooftops to find some other way to take her out is our only way forward. Sophia's fireballs may be tough, but but she does need a wee bit of recharge time to shine up her staff and start again. So in between being in the firing line, you need to jump, monkey bar, pick up mini health packs, and climb walls to get your way up. An impossible task without it taking at least some damage. The level does have some strategically placed blocks to hide behind, but the splash radius of the fireballs can make these a hit or a miss. Pardon the pun. Then comes the wildest part. You need to do something that we've literally never used or seen before in the game so far, and that we will never do again. You need to shoot out an electrical box to electrify Sophia. Introducing this in a boss level is mind-boggling, especially with the challenge of the earlier London levels. I was already shouting in my head, get me out of here, and if I wasn't already on the guide page, I probably would have quit the game. What a final kick in the cojones from London. Oh, and make sure that you find the button to turn the electricity off, otherwise Lara will get fried too. Finally, with the helicopter whirring in the background, you can claim your prize, the Eye of Isis. I think part of the problem is I really don't care for Sophia as a villain. She's evil, sure, but otherwise boring and a bit annoying. No dazzling spectacle that the previous two games taught me to expect from a boss. Number 23, Reunion. Remember what I said I really don't care for Sophia as a villain? It's not surprising that we now come to Reunion next on the ranking. The final boss level for the game and the only one in Tomb Raider 3's expansion, The Lost Artifact. I wasn't sure what to expect from this level in terms of a boss, as I naively thought that I already got rid of Sophia in London. And as much as I love the loading screens between each level, they're gorgeous, hype you for what's to come and make excellent screensavers. It spoiled the boss for me, and I was not hyped that this bitch was back. Saying that though, there's more going on than just the boss section. Releasing a boulder on us as soon as we drop into the level is a kind of evil that I expect from core design at this point, so respect to them for bringing it back for the expansion. Invisible Pass gives more grenade ammo in the launcher if we don't already have it. Then we're confronted with our first enemies. In a boss level. This is a really unusual decision, but a breath of fresh air, a really common theme in The Lost Artifact. These enemies are clearly experiments that Sophia somewhat values, the blend of the damned and whatever happened to Randy and Rory, who, if you don't remember, are the two guys who suffered with the holes in their chests from the Level Temple ruins, which we'll get to soon enough. Let's just call these guys the Holy Damned. Getting past the Holy Damned, navigating past the green goo and across the hole with the floating Holy Damned and aliens, then we get our first glimpse of Sophia, who does much the same as she does in City. She'll charge up her staff and fire green fireballs. We can't damage her too much or get too close, otherwise her force field bounces us away. She runs from us too, just like in City, and asking for Lara to give chase. Anyway, at the top of the room, more boulders drop and more of the Holy Damned spawn. But can we just take a moment to acknowledge how her laugh absolutely grates on my nerves? Please let me know that I'm not the only one. Like I said earlier, there's a lot going on in this room. We need to get through some more doors and lots more of the Holy Damned. Sophia's fireballs hurt and sometimes have unfair splash damage on them. Saying that, I was so much more engaged with her here than in the previous battle with her. Once we're up in the same level as Sophia, this is where we can actually let loose on her. And it's a tough boss fight. The grenade launcher is absolutely bloody useless from the other side of the room. I never liked the weapon anyway, right? MP5 is effective but slow, and the rocket launcher is just the goat if you've amassed the ammo. Finishing her off does the same animation that we've seen before, and Lara picks up the Hand of Wrathmore for the third time, which can be sort of explained. The space setting we can see outside the windows throughout this level, I really liked, but I didn't quite click until writing this what it could be. One theory I can get on board with is that this is a whole hallucination in this level. Lara gets the Hand of Wrathmore and Sleeping with the Fishes, but she lost it somewhere between a boat pickup and the zoo, and it's a madhouse. By the time we start Reunion, the Hand's powers have taken Lara to complete hallucination land, believing that Sophia is alive and we need to get the Hand again and again. The fact that we get backed up on an awesome hot air balloon at the level end just proves something wild is going on, but I love it. Reunion is generally enjoyable, but let down by the lack of plot and repeat boss who's just lackluster in my opinion.
Boring.
Number 22. Jungle. Imagine you booted up the game for the first time with no prior Tomb Raider knowledge. You're playing as some chick in the jungles of India. That's it. Figure out the rest yourself. Tomb Raider 3 relies that you have played the previous games and already have a connection with Lara. It's only after you finish the level and get to the next cutscene that we meet a strange dude at a campsite preparing to ditch his friends Randy and Rory that are in the temple, which Lara is wanting to explore for the Infata artifact. According to the guide on TombRaiders.net, which by the way has excellent guides all the way from back in 1998, this game's name is Tony, and I instantly warmed to him because he leaves us with this. And how this finally gives us a reason to continue. The plot holes, wait, can you even call them plot holes if there's no plot to start with? Anyway, the missing pieces, to the game's detriment or not, allows the level design to shine. The gigantic slope is your only way to go. Although if you're eagle-eyed and tricksy enough, you can find some weapons and ammo early, like the shotgun and Uzi ammo. After successfully maneuvering down the slope, avoiding spike pits, boulders, and giving up hope of getting some clearly visible pickups, we're presented with a few options. To the treetops ahead or to the suspiciously open area on the right. Once you make a decision, the game introduces some new mechanics like quicksand, which on the surface seems quite simple, but it raised many questions for me. How do I get out? Am I supposed to be going this way? And oh my god, how do I freaking get out of here? And we even get a nice new collectible, the crystal. Again, if you haven't played the original before, or you did and you had the pleasure of playing on PC or Mac, you'd think this is just a nice new shiny pickup. No, 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 no. This was the epitome of how to PlayStation and Saturn players all those years ago, as it was your only way to make a save. If you died, back to the last crystal with you, peasant. Despite what they stand for, I think it's a welcome improvement over Tomb Raider 1 and 2 Remastered, since you can always see where those points are during your new game playthroughs, and gauge how you may approach the challenge if you consider playing through a New Game Plus. If you dare. I applaud you if you ever got through this game using those damn crystals. I'm not sure if I want to go through that pain. Although I'd love to trophy hunt for this trilogy, so, you know, swings and roundabouts. Speaking of new stuff though, we at least get some side of new weapons to come. The rocket launcher and fan, and my favourite, the desert eagle. We mostly have new enemies too. The gorgeous monkeys we come across first, who are absolutely adorable. I mean, look at the little tumbles. Oh. Then there's a not so cute piranhas who just, let's just say they'll tell you what they think to your face. Then we've got a returning enemy, the tigers, and they're looking great. And slightly more difficult to put down as the pistols just aren't the best tool. And last for the new stuff, jungle brings us up to speed with what we should expect lots of in the remainder of the game. Verticality. You're sometimes rewarded for exploring every nook and cranny with medipacks, ammo and flares, but the exploration doesn't feel as rewarding as the first two games. I believe due to how sprawling the levels are, not only on the x-axis but now on the y-axis too. I explored to the best of my ability, but I couldn't shake the sneaking suspicion that I was missing a lot. Questioning some of the dead ends, even though the level felt much longer than previous games. Despite the level feeling big, there isn't a huge challenge in terms of tricky jumps or obscure puzzles. There is, however, a focus, as it should, on introducing the increasing number of main gameplay mechanics. Not just running and jumping, but how to deal with boulders, spikes, ziplines, slopes, and switches. The level itself is absolutely stunning in both the original and the remaster. The lighting is beautiful with god rays and fog, seeing reflections in puddles, and the temple we discover after the short swim from the river was really breathtaking. All that while being gorgeous and vibrant. Saying that, there is still some room for improvement. Some atmosphere is lost from the original game, and another disappointment that's really well documented. Some places too dark, some places too light. I actually missed where to put the bloody Indra key at the end of the level and use a guide because the key slot was in the shadows. All in all, jungle was nothing grand or memorable. I had to go through my own playthrough video to refresh my memory of what I thought and what happened because it was just honestly forgettable. Number 21, Lud's Gate. Talking of being a game of two halves, Lud's Gate carries the same characteristic. We begin where Aldwych left off, in the Lair of the Damned. Our first mission is to get more embalming fluid. Seek and find Sophia Lee, and maybe if we've got time, maybe, we'll get some more of those artifacts, the ones we've been looking for half the game so far that were just seemingly forgotten about. An interesting decision to introduce the rest of the plot so late. Almost like it was an afterthought. The setting of the museum was unique and enjoyable, and I was kind of disappointed the latter half of the level didn't continue in the same fashion. Lara breaks her way in through a crawl space, giving us a peek at the Sphinx. Quickly we met with guards who aren't super perceptive. See Exhibit A, who does not notice a gigantic stone block moving from his field of view. Saying that though, they will shoot you if you're too close to the edge of the vents. And for good measure, once you take them down, they will occasionally fire another shot. So you need to have your wits about you even when you think you're done. Continuing through the museum, we get to an Egyptian themed room, which going through has a lot of original Tomb Raider elements. pushing blocks, monkey bars, slides, and the grabbing. And the room changes when we move certain blocks, very reminiscent of Egypt and Tomb Raider 1. Eventually, when we get to the top, we come across the embalming fluid, sitting in between two sarcophagi. If you're observant, you'll see a puff of green fog above the sarcophagus on the left-hand side. Remember the pissed off Egyptian lass from Aldwych? That's all we get as a reference for her. Now let's get her damn friends their embalming fluid. We get to explore the Sphinx, which is imperceivable to get around, and to get all the pickups, particularly as a first timer without a guide. This was a real challenge, and I'm not ashamed to say that the guide was used, and without it I would have given up right here. Apart from that, I felt that the museum is dishearteningly empty. They had a fascinating setting, the chance to make something remarkable, but that's the only exhibits we get to see with no other galleries to dive into. Our decomposing friends get their embalming fluid. Job done, right? Wrong. Dropping off the fluid opens up a long drop into water into yet another method of travel, the underwater propulsion vehicle, or in acronym form, UPV. We can do without the UPV for most of the underwater section, but some long dives do need it, so you better get used to controlling it because, like the kayak in Madubu Gorge, it's very unintuitive to steer. Fussy about where we can leave it, and although it can shoot harpoon ammo, I'm not a fan of it. I found myself ditching the UPV to explore the nooks and crannies, or in the first instance finding the cave that contained any air. There is a guard room which feels like a bit of a pointless exercise beyond grating my nerves even more so with the alarm sounds. And then to the worst part of the level. Several underwater alcoves that we need to figure out which have levers to open trapdoors somewhere else, complete with divers, crocs, narrow passageways that UPV struggles with, and only one area to catch your breath until you pull that final lever and that air is taken away. Bastards. I stepped away from the game as it was frustrating me to the point I didn't want to continue. 2 times in one level is not a good sign. Once you do push through though, there is a nice easy puzzle in between set in the boiler room where we need to get our way past burners, mallets, and figure out a way to cross the room. Eventually we climb up and across some open shafts to Sophia Lee's office. Sophia isn't surprised to see Lara and starts the banter with signing on Lara to promote her products. Lara keeps it going by taking a dig at Sophia's failed and alive experiments with deformed faces, which she's surprised to hear they're still going. Lara makes a swipe for the staff on the desk, which Sophia snatches away and bolts out the room. Lara pursues our seemingly immortal friend, but this doesn't coalesce the story, much like many of the other cutscenes. I'm unsure why Sophia is after Lara. Is it only from the artifact hunting, or has Sophia heard about her and wants to keep her out of the way? This isn't a moan though, at least we've been given some story momentum built up via our new villain, Sophia. Number 20. Lara's home. It seems a bit unfair to rank the whole of Tomb Raider 3 without at least giving a special mention to Lara's home, even though I committed the sin of not playing it till I was halfway through the levels. It mostly fulfills its purpose as a training or tutorial before you get into the game proper, and I really like the idea that you have a dedicated area to practice in, which many games could benefit from instead of having a long-winded intro where you need to spend 3 hours before they actually let you go and take your training wheels off. Although I am a little bit miffed that the racetrack is locked behind a door requiring a key, kind of defeating the purpose of it like being a tutorial level, you know? And it's not like the key is super obvious how to get either. Plus, it isn't fully complete training area either. There's a significant increase of methods of transport in Tomb Raider 3 with the canoe and the minecart being added. While the minecart I can forgive as it's relatively easy and straightforward to maneuver, I would have really appreciated being able to test out the kayak a little bit more at her home. I mean, look at Lara's mansion. She's got the money to install a kayak assault course. Apart from that, there are a few gripes which seem to be present in the remasters as well as the originals. The gym I always found unclear what action I was supposed to be practicing at each point, despite the numbering on the ground. This just isn't helped by Lara's lines being poorly synced with each area. And speaking of those voice lines, they didn't upgrade what Lara says in the gym according to the modern controls. A small thing, but I can see how this could be really confusing for new players. Caveat to that is, though, why would you be playing the remastered games out of order as a newcomer since they come as a trilogy? Dunno, might happen, right? Other than on recommendation or nostalgia, I can't think of a logical reason why players may choose to do this, but it probably does happen. Despite these flaws, I was blown away by the level of detail that became clearer in the remastered graphics. The pool looks fantastic. I love seeing where Lara puts her feet up with the leopard print shades pointed at the disproportionately sized TV. The 90s. We can still lock Winston in the freezer, although he does seem to have picked up either a bout of food poisoning or have some sort of incontinence problem. There are examples of the music being exceptionally loud, even at Lara's relatively calm, classy mansion, but my absolute highlight was the artifact collection and the assault course. It was really fun seeing all the relics Lara has collected from her past adventures. And I've always enjoyed the assault course, even though I don't replay for better times. And the addition at the end, obtaining the pistols and doing some target practice, was the icing on the cake. And Winston turning up in his army attire and animations was the cherry on top. Number 19, the River Ganges. The River Ganges starts where we left in Temple Ruins, with that stupid sexy quad bike sitting all tantalizing on the corner. We're after Tony for reasons, so that means we're making our way down the river. And I only realised at the end of the level when it finished, in my eyes quite abruptly, that the game gives the player the choice. Stupid says quad bike or some other path without. Obviously the game wants us to choose a more appealing option, which is great for those who like replaying or really delving into every square inch of each level. This is a sparsely used design which I really enjoy. It's rewarding for those who are looking for that level of challenge, and I think it should be kept sparse as it adds more interest to levels which may be otherwise duller without the allure of choice. Another thing this level does well is a reward for exploration. If you take your eyes off the damn quad bike for just 5 seconds please, you'll notice that there's a dark cave behind it filled with goodies. It feels like the developers are putting items in areas that you can see but can't get to with your quad to claim them, like at the bottom of pits or before you go and throw yourself over a bridge. At the end of the level we're forced off the quad and we can see some challenging platforming to be done to get items, which I did not because I wasn't careful enough. And then the level just ends. I never experienced that abrupt level end screen in the past 2 games, but I did several times throughout this 3rd installment. This goes back to what I said, that we don't always have a clear goal for each level. Something that was really slick in Tomb Raider 1 and 2. There was always usually a door to open, an unusual item, or an area that we couldn't quite get to early on, that you could count on to be the way forward. Even the time it took you to complete a level was generally consistent throughout, but in Tomb Raider 3's case, it can vary wildly. And I don't even know if you can get every single item in one go on this level, but I can imagine the rage some players will go through to get them. Which brings me to the quad bike itself. It may be sexy, but it is damn difficult to maneuver, especially in the tight corners of this level. It does add to the charm of the early 2000s nature of the game, but boy, it gets infuriating when you can't make a jump and need to align the quad perfectly with perfect acceleration to land. Add to this that falling in the river results in pretty much certain death. The few times I tried to find somewhere to get out, I was unsuccessful and ended up getting mauled by the piranhas. Other than our fishy friends, we encounter very little in the way of enemies, bar some vultures, which are bothersome but light work for pistols, as birds typically are in the franchise so far. Despite taking me only 20 odd minutes to get through the level, I felt it outstayed its welcome. The level is carried by the excitement of the quad bike, and I felt it was otherwise mundane. Nothing happens to move the story forward, and the level has little in terms of challenge apart from navigating the river. Regardless of the impressive setting and the music alongside the quad, the River Ganges is just, again, in my eyes, mediocre. Number 18. Lost City of Tinnos. Ah, the Lost City of Tinnos. More like the Lost City of Tinnitus, am I right? Seriously, the endless amounts of wasps and all that buzzing had me hating this level at first, but things quickly turned around. Let me tell you the story. Young, ammo broke and tired, Lara struggled through Tinnos. Starting with a blaring alarm, she's then presented with an overwhelmingly large room in a warm but icy cave. Then she discovers a dumb button-pushing puzzle that is a convoluted way of describing the food chain, sinful even by 1998 standard. The level starts ridiculously quiet, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Until you get to the bridge that is, then it's stacks of wasps, which do not go down easily with the pistols. I think I counted about 18 shots just to get one down. Then you meet the gruesome twosome, super strong, fireball shooting mutants that take a couple of rockets to the face. Oh, and then more wasps. And more mighty mutants locked behind gates. You can kind of see where I'm going here. There's so many wasps that are tough and never ending. Add some of those mutants with limited amounts of ammo for your better weapons and the level becomes a slog. That doesn't however mean that this level is all bad. In my opinion, is another one of those tales of two halves. Half a bloody dire experience and the other half an absolute pleasure to play through. That second enjoyable part comes from several parts of the level. The room with the bridge and the swinging lanterns that we need to get around and trigger several switches and open the doors at the bottom. A more challenging puzzle that we've seen so far that isn't ridiculously out of the scope of solving. Crossing a threshold at the bottom can trigger more wasps, but they're easily avoided, as are the waiting mutants and wasps in the next room containing the uli key. Progressing into the light pillar room that gives off a pleasing hum, we're met with 4 slots, each which require an oceanic mask to turn off the yellow pillar and progress onto the level end. Each mask is hidden in a room relating to the elements earth, fire, wind and water. Each room is unique with the puzzles and obstacles that we need to overcome. In the earth room we need to get past the quicksand, take down even more wasps, and then pick up the mask, which makes the whole place rumble and fall apart. The slight problem I have with the rumbling, which was also in the first Tomb Raider game, is how motion sick it made me, and I don't typically get any motion sickness from anything. I wish there was an option in the menu to turn this off. The fire room is a cool puzzle, kind of like the swamp and crash side. Look closely enough at the ceiling and you'll find a map that shows which pillars are safe. We're then dropped into a surprise room if you step on a trapdoor, and then into a room with flaming heads and invisible platforms. A really rewarding challenge which apparently has more than one way of progressing past. In the wind room, it's not much of the wind that's a problem, it's a maze that's easily brute force, but has good rewards, especially since we're running so low on ammo. And in the final water room, a slightly different maze. Underwater, with many nooks and crannies separated by giant rotating blades, again, a really unique, engaging set piece. The elemental rooms I found to be a refreshing end to the level. They gave us a fair challenge in spite of the barrel load of enemies just stacked on us from the start with not much else going on. Don't get me wrong, there's still enemies in the elemental section, but they're much fewer and further between. Once you put in all the masks, the light pillar turns off, making the hole in the center of the room accessible. Dropping down the hole triggers the end cutscene. Willard inserts the artifacts that he stole from us, generating a new light pillar in a circular room. A green stone rises in the center of the room and Willard jumps into the green goo. Soon resurrected as a 6-legged spider. The lost city of Tinnos is a classic example of the 50-50 nature of Tomb Raider 3. In this case, poor enemy execution carried by strong puzzling elements. Number 17. Caves of Kaliya. We round out Lara's adventure in India with the Caves of Kaliya. Basically a maze filled with traps. Typical Tomb Raider really, right? Exploring the maze isn't always rewarding unless you like dead ends. But when it is, there's a couple of ammo and medipack pickups, and they're often accompanied by very protective snakes. Oppressive sounds and minimal music adds to the unnerving atmosphere, which I adored throughout the game. There are little remarkable waypoints in the maze apart from the paved area, like, you know, a maze, but thankfully it's relatively easy to deduct that you gotta throw yourself in the hole. And I feel really sorry for those poor PlayStation folk that missed that crystal. Godspeed. In that hole you're confronted by a pitch-black pit of snakes. Indiana Jones style. I think. I haven't seen Indy in over 20 years. Go too far and you'll trigger the panic music and a boulder. This is honestly more of what I was expecting from Tomb Raider 3. Relentless sections that require calm and skill to get through. Or very lucky panic. Whatever floats your boat. After all that we meet our first boss. Our good friend Tony. I don't think we really find out definitely why we're fighting Tony, but I'll tell you my deductions. Tony of course knew about the Infada artifact, and we'll get to why shortly, and led his friends Randy and Rory into the temple to do it for him and save himself. So he's either a douchebag or under some sort of trickery, and that's why Lara's trying to do right. After all this time, a recurring theme I see in the Tomb Raider bosses is that they aren't significantly more difficult or require you to employ any other strategies to defeat them compared to your everyday enemies. As long as you keep moving, in this case around the pit of lava on the strategically placed platforms, then the pistols can be a good choice to get these bosses down, including Tony. He makes us a little bit more challenging by throwing exploding lava bombs in the air that land on the platforms. My roundabout method didn't fail me on this occasion. Once you defeat Tony, the triumphant feel-good music of getting him down plays out and you face your last test. Can you jump to the center block and take the Infada artifact? It's not difficult, but I can see how I could have been cocky from the one and totally missed the easy jump. Picking up the artifact triggers a cutscene, and in my opinion the best story explanation so far. Willard comes along in his boat and introduces himself to Lara. Remember, we encountered him in that opening cutscene in Antarctica. Willard offers work to Lara as the other lab rats, i.e. Tony, Randy and Rory, haven't done a good job. I sense Willard's desperation since, well, you know, they're dead, but not all at Lara's hand. He goes on to explain about another 3 artifacts, which confuses Lara as she believes that the Infada tribe held the only artifact. We discover the artifacts are made of a meteorite rock, seen in the opening cutscene, that were forged by the Polynesians that settled in Antarctica at the time. Guernsey distributed the artifacts across the world, including the one we just found in India. We flash back to a sailor on the HMS Beagle, on an expedition led by Charles Darwin in the 1800s. The sailors leave the ship to hunt for meat and follow some kind of prints in the snow into an ominous caves with their creepy face models intact. This must end very well. The sailors discover the artifacts as well as finding out they're being hunted by hungry wolves. The cave starts collapsing and one of the sailors, Paul, doesn't fare well. The rest of them survive with their prizes, bursting into the bright snow. They agree to tell others that Paul fell down a crevasse and erected a cross in his memory. Willard finishes with telling us that another sailor, Stephen, was the only survivor of the 5 after seeing his crewmates murdered or killed with their artifacts, and I'm guessing out of superstition, sold his artifact in London. Lara agrees to help Willard, and finally we have a purpose for Lara. Although this boss level is a bit underwhelming, this cutscene alone made up for a huge lack of story thus far. Although the game gives us an unusual new choice. Where to go next? Nevada, London, or the South Pacific? Number 16. RX Tech Mines. RX Tech Mines starts off in a dark hole, Lara hot on Willard's heels. We're faced with a fun small puzzle to get us going. After you figure out the dark hole of course has an exit, a disorientating dark maze of doors that close and open as we pass them. Only as you realise that we need to backtrack you'll find an exit tunnel. We'll come across a new type of friend too. White snowsuit clad, flamethrower wielding guards. Holy crap, that was a mouthful. The first of which we see taking out more mutants like we'd seen in the first Antarctic level. The terrifically designed, terrifying mutants come in 2 types. The not so scary ones who spit acid and crawl along, which go down to the better weapons pretty quickly. And then we stumble across the freakish ones that still have legs and a scythe for an arm. I appreciate the use of non-humanoid enemies here. There seems to be an abundance of them throughout the game, with the occasional dinosaur, dog or tiger thrown in. Despite enemies being easy to take down with, say, the MP5, they do take a lot of ammo. I was running really low on ammo for many of my weapons, and unfortunately the level doesn't deliver significant top-ups and generally has a small number of pickups for the level size. Finally, we get to a large room where we can see the 3 minecarts and their tracks on various different levels, each of which we need to use to explore the area beyond. Minecart steering is pretty easy to get the hang of. Ducking, hitting levers to change the track direction, and hitting the brakes was refreshing and a delightful addition to Lara's, how do you say it? Vehicular array. The level though feels significantly a step towards classic tomb raiding again, despite the various branching pathways. We finish with an area, then return back to the main room and then on to the next. Each track gives us something different. The lower track taking us to several mutants, followed by a freezing pool containing essential item number 1, the winch starter. The second track on the middle level gives us more mutants, drills that come out of walls, spiky rollers, and essential item number 2, the crowbar. We also need to crack the padlock door in the main room to grab essential item number 3, the battery, before moving on to the final track at the top. Inserting the battery in the winch starter drops the yellow submersible so we can dive into the deep water without catching a cold. Finally we come to a chasm, each side connected via a bridge with, yep, even more mutants, yay, and Moai heads before opening up the door to alarms blaring and popping the level end stats. There's a lot I love about this level. The minecarts and the mutant flamethrower dude combo are highlights, but I can appreciate it may be bland for some. Number 15. Meteorite Cavern. Meteorite Cavern is the final level in the main game, featuring Willard as a 6-legged boss spider. He's relatively easy to take down with a desert eagle, but he regenerates his health slowly, so you gotta be quick grabbing each of the 4 artifacts before taking him down one last time. One thing I admire is the bosses are never ridiculously difficult, almost on the edge of being too easy, in most cases so that we would never hit a brick wall and abandon the game, though some other levels I could see this happening. Many of our modern titles, and I'm sure other older ones too, lean into the arduous difficulty of a boss. Yep, I'm looking at you, Father Gascoigne of Bloodborne, although this could be my modern lens of a somewhat self-proclaimed gamer. Anyway, after you take the big man down, the level isn't finished there. Another strange feat for a boss level. We need to get Lara out of Antarctica. Climbing out of the room into the winter wonderland. Snow is falling. Oh, I can almost taste the eggnog. Whatever eggnog is. An ice slide, men in white suits with guns and flamethrowers, and then we finally hear the whirring of helicopter blades. Although it appears that this isn't our ride. Lara takes out the pilot and makes an action-packed escape, shooting down turrets, avoiding missiles, and outmaneuvering another firing helicopter. She can never accept a quiet life, can she? Not my favourite level, but an enjoyable enough boss experience with some surprising gameplay even after defeating Willard. Number 14. Temple Ruins. Temple Ruins continues Lara's journey in India. I had a really poor memory of this level to begin with, so off to the video archive and guide again. And I think it's because it starts off insignificantly. There's no wow moment to hook your attention back into the level. And we continue straight on from the previous level in jungle, notably the piranha pool in the temple that's now underwater. However, this isn't the case for the whole level. I actually really enjoyed the last 3/4 of the level and thought it was an excellent setup, and quite honestly could have probably been spliced with jungle slightly differently to make it, you know, the jungle only and leave this level for the ruins and inside the temple. The beginning going through the jungle, again, just felt unnecessary, like I'd already been there, done that. Let's get it over with. The game still is in tutorial mode, introducing new enemies like the snake, which it doesn't explicitly tell you how to fix their poison, but with the limited pickups in the game, it's reasonable to assume that you'll eventually figure out that the Medipack sorts Lara right out. The snake I really like as an enemy. Although it's static, its strategic placements throughout the game can really be a make or break, so you need to be on your guard. Will it poison you, or will it just push you off a ledge? You decide. We also get to some high stakes jumping, traversal, and trap puzzles to deal with. The piranha pool is a build on from jungle where we can't swim quicker than them and just have to ensure that we make a perfect jump to avoid the terrifying waters below. A variety of traps one after the other is a game getting you comfortable with surprises at every turn. They just went ahead and cranked the dial up to 11 and gave us a room where rubble falls while you try to avoid a dart gun and looking for a safe space to get some air. Then the room at the top gives you boulders, choppy wall knives and spike walls all within a matter of seconds. We also come across a rather unique combination of traps like the pool with the spikes while trying to grab one of the keys of Ganesha, which I don't recall being in any or many other levels, or some simple surprise big balls if that's your thing. All these elements do a remarkable job at setting us up to see what's in store for the rest of the game, and surely should have been the first level in my eyes. Albeit, when I'm anticipating something all the time, it really ruins the surprise. Even with all these exciting things, the level keeps giving with more safe puzzles. One of my favourites used sparingly in the past is the puzzles where you have to guess where Lara has to jump to progress up a mudslide or similar. The block pushing puzzles I can take or leave, but as Tomb Raider 3's first, I found it relatively simple, although I can imagine it being infuriating for folks that maybe didn't think about an important smudging behind there. The fire room with invisible blocks I found to be quite rewarding, figuring out how the heck to get to that switch and witnessing what may be the first instance of changing environments when the water turns to quicksand. Okay, I've put it off long enough. Let's talk about the Shivas. A phenomenal mini-boss to kickstart Lara's adventure. They're unique and something I'd recently expect to come alive in a temple. Shooting at them is only effective if you get them in the back, otherwise they're gonna block your bullets. They even offer a little coward corner where you can be out of harm's reach until you figure out your next move. And like me, you may get lucky and they'll just block with their back turned to you. It's important to know that they don't all come to life, however, but I was still cautious no matter which one I was approaching. And now on to what I didn't like so much. The lack of cutscenes about what switches are doing isn't too bad in this level, but persists throughout the game with varying levels of annoyance. Again, it's disappointing this far after release that there's still some bugs. Like one I encountered where a ladder that looked like a ladder Lara just decided not to grab properly, but maybe I just flubbed it. I don't think I did. Speaking of annoying things though, the fixed camera angles at important points. Imagine my modern control brain. Just why? Why? Speaking of more annoying things, why is this bloody game so dark? I already discussed it in Jungle, but switches and movable objects are even more difficult to see in the remastered graphics versus the original. Just give us a brightness slider, please, and thank you. Getting back to the story, we now know that we're going into the temple to grab the Infata artifact, and we might bump into Randy and Rory, but beyond curiosity, I still don't really care to be here. Lara may as well be sitting on a beach in Goa sipping pina coladas. The level doesn't implicitly give us any more story right until the very end, where we come across the two friends who are horribly suspended and one with a suspicious hole in his chest, followed by a cutscene of Tony floating down the river on a pallet and Lara shooting at him. At this point, I don't quite understand why she opens fire or what happened to cause the temple to come crashing down around Lara, but what I do understand though is that quad bike sitting in the corner seducing us into the next level. Number 13, Shakespeare Cliff. That fresh British seaside air, dropped off by yet another helicopter in the picturesque settings of the White Cliffs of Dover, and the level titled Shakespeare Cliff, which apparently references a real location, where the first attempt to create a tunnel was started in the 1870s. Anywho, we're dropped into an industrial storage area, interestingly with containers marked with Park Zoologique, a nod to future level. It's a madhouse, and easy to figure out if you know a little bit of French. A park with some sort of zoo, and a not so easy reference that I had to look up. Many enemies, areas, and things generally are marked with Slink, which stands for Sophia Lee Inc., our favourite friend's cosmetic company. Honestly, I didn't notice this before now, and I don't know how I'm supposed to know that that's what it was. Games of this era, it could have been an ad placement for a company I'd never heard of, but apparently it's just environmental storytelling. Well done, game, but I could have done with another little hint. Saying that, the level contains one of my favourite puns, the Euro Channel. Just bloody brilliant. The enemies in this level are pretty painless, being either rats or humans in the form of guards with guns or in boiler suits armed with the Thesaurus spanner. Getting past some burners opens to a large pit, which took me more attempts than I care to let on to understand what needed to be done. Basically, get down onto one of the ledges and wait for not one, but 2 drills to pass in order to turn off the fan in the floor and get further underground. Exploration is well compensated throughout the level, generally with ammo and health top-ups, but also many guns can be found for the first time in this level, like the shotgun, or if you haven't found it yet, the MP5. We open out onto a train tunnel, a fond memory of London. Yes, that was sarcasm, but this time round we can actually bloody see. Opening the door throws us right in front of more guards and an old friend, the quad bike. Keep your momentum going and Lara will soar above the tracks, triggering an amazing cutscene. Then avoiding some deep holes brings us to a massive shaft with a stationary train. This area feels huge with lots of nooks and crannies, but it's not unnecessarily large. Look around enough and you'll be paid handsomely. Our goal here is to find a keycard to activate the drill. You'll see it lying on a ledge not too far down the room. Getting here is a bit tricky, but I believe there's several ways to get there, with my approach being of course being the careful coward's way. Keycard in hand, Lara comes across a lever that opens up the double doors to get to the drill. An easy enough feat after the trouble we've been through just to get the damn card. Sticking the card to the drill opens back up into the shaft, but not before we pick up the pump access disc, which goes in the computer in the toilet near the stationary train. I have no idea what this does because I thought carrying on down the hallway would take me back up there, but no, the level ends. An odd recurring theme in the game as a whole. So far in the expansion, it feels like we're returning to Tomb Raider 1's level design. Tricky platforming with some areas packed with things to explore, which Shakespeare Cliff is an excellent example of. Number 12. Temple of Puna. Temple of Puna brings us to the end of Lara's hunt for the artifact in the South Pacific, and with it an interesting boss which is more suited to what happened in Nevada, but hey, aliens are just trying to make a home somewhere, okay? We start out by being assaulted by some tribesmen which don't make any drops, which actually makes sense in the game. They don't use medipack or traditional ammo like Lara does. And it's obvious that this is a boss level due to the number of pickups and secrets. Speaking of secrets, the only one is quite obscure but close to where you begin, although you can get back there before you tackle the boss. The route we need to follow is relatively straightforward. First up, a deadly rolling blade room that requires timing, patience, and a little bit of courage to open the door. After a quick pit stop in a spike room, we come across an interesting Indiana Jones-like scene again, running from multiple boulders with more of a favourite fixed camera angles to create a memorable experience. Entering the boss arena, all is quiet. That is until we get too close and the chair spins to reveal Puna. He does insta-kill you if you get caught by one of his bolts, shields himself most of the time, and spawns some lovely poisonous lizards to make sure you're having the best time possible. The rocket launcher is effective but too slow to reload against this attack, so the Desert Eagle saved the day on my playthrough. This has been one of my favourite boss fights in the franchise so far. It's challenging and my run in a circle method doesn't work. Plus the added challenge at the start increased the difficulty, but not in such a way that it's too demanding. Number 11. Madubu Gorge. Madubu Gorge progresses us further to finding another artifact, as alluded to in the ending cutscene in Crash Site. The loading screen depicts a kayak, so guess what happens in this level? More lizards slash Dilophosaurus are introduced, which don't do much apart from their poison, and with minimal pickups early on, there's quite a few places you can be dropping health like crazy, and only a few medipacks throughout the whole level, which adds a whole different layer of challenge. This is another level with diverging paths. Well, as far as I know, reading through guides and watching some other playthroughs. I didn't see any obvious way to lower the drawbridge, so downriver I went. The rushing river is fantastic in this setting, and if I'm going to be kayaking, may as well make it difficult with rapids and many obstacles compared to the dull version seen in the River Ganges. By now I'm starting to get used to what Tomb Raider 3 wants me to do and its quirks, which I found quite different to the first 2 games. They felt relatively similar and simpler than the third. Early on there is some backtracking, and the way to progress is completely hidden behind a waterfall, which requires a guide yet again. One thing I find infuriating about Tomb Raider 3 is its assumption that you'll understand what to do without ever showing you at any other point in the game what it may do. Take that hidden path behind the waterfall. It's used so irregularly in the franchise it may as well not exist. Same as the level exit after the raptor encounter in Crash Site. We've literally never used this mechanic before, but yet somehow we need to deduce it on our own. I get the game is focused on solving puzzles, however when there's some things that are just so obscure it's just plain frustrating. At this stage we haven't seen the kayak. The water lures us in with tempting crystals, but in reality, there are very little, if any, safe places to get out, along with piranha-filled waters and certain instant death at the end, which aren't helped again by the fixed camera angle modern control combo. Water effects in the scenery are impressive once we get to the opposite side of the canyon. And finally, we're rewarded with a beautiful room with Pacifica carvings and artwork, with the bobbing kayak being guarded by some crocs. The kayak provides us with some safety from enemies, but we can't attack them from there. That would just be too hard to put the damn paddle down and pick up a pistol, eh Lara? The kayak itself is hard to control, but it's an interesting mode of transport, not really used in gaming, even nowadays. I don't know how difficult it is to pull it off, but I can't think of any other examples where this is used. An admirable feat for a release almost 30 years ago. We quickly learn in the kayak that passing green ropes results in good and red have bad outcomes like traps. We also discover that damage is relentless in the kayak, so keeping Lara's health topped up is crucial. It doesn't make much sense how easily we can paddle against the currents, but hey, she's got to get around somehow, and locking us out is counterproductive. There's limited safe spaces to get out. Rushing water, spikes, piranhas block us at every turn until we come across a nice safe platform, guarded by yet again another croc. The game is finicky about where we can get out. We can't be too close to anything, plus the fixed camera angles and narrow field of view when jumping out are bothersome. Once we're back on dry land though, it's an enjoyable platforming segment, like traditional Tomb Raider, with loads of climbing, avoiding flames, monkey bars, careful jumps, and a sweet zipline too. Oh, and a cool boulder mechanic I haven't come across anywhere in the franchise yet, where you need to be quick and duck before the boulder squishes you as it goes down the hill. After we've pulled the lever to unplug the massive pool you would have come across earlier, we're given a handy shortcut back to our kayak and need to carefully navigate the swirling waters, which has a spectacular effect, and drop Lara down the hole safely and get to the level end. Number 10. Antarctica. With the depths of hell, I mean London, behind us, Lara's final jaunt takes us to Antarctica with the self-named title for the level. And with Sophia out of the way, we can get back to helping Willard find the artifacts. The level opens with a cutscene with Lara in a helicopter above Antarctica looking supremely stylish with the orange jacket and camo pants in a different colorway. I have many questions about helicopters flying in Antarctica, but I doubt I'll end up with any answers, so just let's get past it. Basically, the helicopter is struggling with the storm and makes a dicey landing. Lara ventures out into the snow, leaving behind the heli sinking into the ice, and then the level begins in front of a massive ship, the RX Explorer, reasonably assumed to be owned by RX Tech, the company who we saw drilling for the meteorite in Antarctica in the intro cutscene that Willard's part of. Our first task is to platform around the ship and get up onto it, and find some way to easily explore the rest of the area. The remastered graphics are yet again stunning in this icy setting, and if you do fancy dipping your toes into the beautifully clear waters, you'll be introduced surprisingly to a new mechanic, the cold meter. Staying in the frigid water too long will drain the bar quickly, so make sure you're exploring with haste. All aboard the ship, we find that the ship is relatively straightforward and doesn't actually have much to explore, which is a bit of a letdown. The red jacket enemies are also pretty easy to take down with the pistols, but like the guards in various other levels, will shoot one final shot at you as they die. Doing the minimal amount of exploring on the ship will get you an easy secret off to the side, which isn't super rewarding, just MP5 ammo and a save crystal. And for what we actually came for, the inflatable boat, which we can drop into the water and get going with the rest of the level. Why it says Croft on the engine, I can't fathom, other than we've asked Willard to bring it for us, but that doesn't seem like our resourceful Lara that we know. Using our boat to navigate around the icy channels, I saw a lot of items that I didn't manage to get on this first playthrough. We generally get a nice mix of pickups, but we do burn through a lot of ammo with a number of enemies, so resources run down quick if you miss those pickups. The boat itself handles really well compared to the other transport options in the game, similarly to what was in the Venice levels in Tomb Raider 2, although it's still fussy about where we can park and get out of it. We eventually come across two doors that we cannot pass with our boat, so taking Lara to land is the only option. Exploring the RX Tech compound, which is made up of various research stations, we need to navigate our way around caged dogs, button controls, extremely dark areas with rapid opening and closing doors, human enemies, a valve puzzle, and padlocked doors. Oh, and a partially destroyed station containing a mutated scientist who spits poison but dies without our intervention. He triggers a trophy called Brundlefly, apparently a reference to The Fly, which unfortunately I haven't seen. I really appreciate seeing references to other media format and franchises in Tomb Raider. Something I didn't catch much of in this game, but when used as carefully as it is, makes a significant moment when we realise it. Despite each research station area looking very similar, it's not as complex a layout as the London levels, which I highly value. So close to the endgame. Barreling through the open gates, we find another small compound with some guards and a long empty shaft. Exploring through the side of the Soul building, we get to the end cutscene. Lara barges in on Willard, enjoying some delicious warming tomato soup. Willard is fascinated by the Brundlefly, who was exposed to the material inside of the Meteorite crater, which disgusts Lara. How could he do this to one of his own scientists? I don't know about you, but at this point I'm starting to see a lot of similarities between Willard and Sophia Lee. Willard tells Lara that the artifacts will let Willard get to the core of the crater in the spirit of speeding up natural evolution. Lara's pissed now that he could be so crass, involving her in his evil scheme and draws her pistols. Willard quickly reacts, flipping the table and knocking Lara back, snatching the briefcase containing the artifacts, puts on his coat, and skedaddles out into the cold. Lara follows Willard into the elevator shaft that descends underground. You can probably tell how I speak about this level, what a relief it is to be back enjoying the game compared to the cruel nature of London. Number 9. Sleeping with the fishes.
It means Lara Croft sleeps with the fishes.
Finally, a use for all the harpoon ammo that's been dumped on us in the past few levels. Sleeping with the Fishes begins with Lara in an industrial underwater area, a rather different setting to what we've seen before, and reminiscent of the Maria Doria in Tomb Raider 2. Going through the cold hallways, we get a glimpse of a diver through a window protecting a whole load of shotgun ammo. A sign of how many pickups in this level, a whopping 57, which I didn't even touch the size of with my playthrough. Eventually we get to dive, pardon the pun, into the level proper, getting sight of beautiful underwater foliage and neat automated underwater shuttles. I'm struggling to explain my thoughts about this first part of the level though, because the theming is very repetitive and fast-paced. An example of the repetition is the pools and platforms that give us air. They're easier to tell apart once you get your bearings, but we also have currents and enemies dropped in quick succession, so I felt like I didn't get the chance to explore properly. I know I could have dealt with the divers, but the harpoon gun is just one of the worst weapons in the game. Slow to reload, limited clip capacity, and generally hard to aim when you're juggling so much when Lara can't breathe. It's not worth my time taking them out if we aren't passing through this area again. You may be asking then, Emma, why rate this level so highly if you felt rushed through these first 3 areas? My answer being, this is another classic example of a level of 2 halves, although I wouldn't say it's anywhere near a 50-50 split in this instance. That first part's more like 20%. Once we get swept into another area that has a safe room, we get a puzzle requiring circuit bulbs to be inserted. 1 yellow, 1 blue, which are scattered around the immediate area. Then we load by a trail of lights indicating which way to go. And this is where I came across an infuriating bug. As we've already established, the current sweeps us through large sections of the level. So tell me why I couldn't access a trail that was indicating where I should be going. And then tell me why that only happened in the remastered graphics and not in the original. I'll cover this more in the last section, but this isn't a good state to have the game in more than a year after release. Anywho, with the circuit bulbs in hand, or in place I should say, the door warning us that we're about to enter a restricted access area opens, which looks exactly like the other places that gives us air, but with a twist. We can't climb up. Exploring a little bit more thoroughly, we can get up to a corridor where we see a guard protecting a room and some gates. This is a really cool twist as the guard doesn't see us and he never does. What better time to light it up? I don't think he appreciated my greeting of pistol fire as the alarm instantly started blaring, but now we get to see what's going on inside this room, which turns out to be a research lab. This is where the level accelerates from meh to memorable. In the research lab, the screen displays DNA strands and images of what appears to be dolphins and some other creature. Continuing down past the gates outside the lab contains 2 wheels that release 2 mutant creatures in the water below. Taking them out and exploring the caves gives Lara mutant samples to pick up. Going further in, we come across an eerily quiet tank room containing mutants or aliens or a combination of both, with a fabled 5th artifact at the bottom of a pool, just out of our reach. We need to fill the pool to get the artifact, so doing a little bit more poking around takes us to a most unusual room filled with cages with either tiny people or kids in them. Windows gives us glimpses into an enclosure for a dolphin and another mutant creature, and inserting the samples into the computer fills the pool so that we can access the artifact. That's a lot, so let's pick apart what I think might have been happening. Sophia we know is experimenting on people like the damned that we saw in Aldwych. Whether it's just small people or kids in a container, I don't know, but it's bloody sinister either way. She's also experimenting on animals. That poor dolphin, I felt I had to protect him from that mutant and we escaped into the sunset. Or maybe not. On top of that, we come across the same small sized containers marked Parc Zoologique. My theory is Sophia's feeling the heat, either from Lara or someone else that's clicking onto what she's doing. She's shuttling the mutants from London to the zoo in France to satisfy her infatuation with immortality and eternal beauty, and has no regard for other lives, human or not. I'm not usually a fan of underwater levels, but the dark tone along with the environmental storytelling going through the roof really enhance the level. The level ends with Lara exiting from a buoy in the middle of the channel, greeted with a convenient boat to escape. Number 8. Willard's Lair. Righto, onto the dead guy's house. Seriously, I don't know why we're snooping around Willard's Lair, but we'll find out soon enough. This level has an action-packed opening. Quickly slide down to grab some flares and then avoid the spike wall and dodge a boulder before coming across a lovely fog-filled pit. But wait, there's more. In said fog pit, there lies dogs. Not just one, but 2 jump scare skeletons. Then fuck tons of boulders surrounded by tantalizing pickups including the MP5, kinda like the boulders on the ceiling in Tomb Raider 1's expansion Unfinished Business. Clearly they took that name seriously to bring it back 2 installments later. Cue the boulders when you want to leave the room. I'm not complaining, this is a welcome change of pace and an excellent setup for the rest of the expansion. Moving on to the next room, we slide into another delicious puzzle. Several levels of spike walls which trigger as soon as we step foot into the danger zone, but with the obvious pickups that we miss if we progress too quickly. I'll admit this took me a little while to get, but basically you need to get up to the next level, let the spikes below you pass and avoid the spikes on the same level as you, and then hop back down. When we get to the top, we met with an inviting message at the room on the left. Abandon hope for all ye who enter here. A puzzle I did not solve, so I can't comment too much, but basically this stuff at the top with very limited ways to get them and a spike wall threatening to squish you. If you do get some time though to explore, you'll see tally marks covering the wall suggesting that this may have been a cell. For whom, we'll never know. The positive shift back to puzzle solving, what Lara does best in the first 2 games, is back in full force in this expansion. But we're not quite done yet. Eventually, after more vertical platforming, we open to a huge library being patrolled by guards. I want to take a second here to just admire those details in those rooms. The tartan curtains apt for the setting, the elegant tapestry of the Loch Ness monster topped off with classic stone carvings. It just feels quintessentially Tomb Raider, something we haven't seen in some time, like in the first game in Egypt. It just has a charm that's unforgettable. And you can tell the level designers had some fun here as we head downstairs. Sitting on a few of the desks is an unmistakable cover of Tomb Raider 2 Gold. Then some more lore that helps us understand why we're here. Scattered paperwork tells us about a plan for an expedition to find a 5th artifact, which to Lara's knowledge only 4 exist. I missed a lot in this level, so the end felt way too quick for me. The level rounds out with a helicopter waiting for us at the end via a fun puzzle in the library with some bookcases. Number 7. It's a madhouse. Back in France, we're dropped underwater yet again, and pick up the Hand of Rathmore for reasons we kinda discussed already in Reunion. I believe this is the beginning of some sort of hallucination, stemming from the artifacts and are affecting Lara by clouding her judgment of the world around her. Not completely though, as some of this world does make sense. We climb up to a charming courtyard decorated beautifully with some tables and chairs. Proceeding further, we come across a sign for Parc Zoologique, the same place we were seeing marked on the containers on past levels. Continuing through the courtyard, we're met by some gorgeous white tigers, which are light work for the pistols. To get any further, we need to find a key to lead us into either aviary or the jungle. An easy feat if you explore upwards in the immediate area and find it behind a vine wall. I adore the setting of the zoo being used, but the jungle section just made it feel creepy, like you would expect a zoo to be at night. Another hedge maze later, which throws us more surprised tigers, lets us into some of the enclosures. Investigating the tiger's cage is a gold mine with the Uzis there. If you haven't found them elsewhere, then now's your chance. The next few areas are my favourites and home to the monkeys. They have loads of bridges and platforms and the next key. A really cool area which descends down into a tree area with loads of spikes being patrolled by more tigers. Then we get on a zipline to a more traditional monkey enclosure. Land surrounded by a pool of water filled with traditional piranhas. The little buggers were still the medipacks if you're not quick, and with a short switch puzzle we landed back in the courtyard, ready to explore the birdhouse. The aviary is a compact but busy area, another which I don't feel like I explored thoroughly. We're greeted by vultures that spawn, like any bird, only take a few pistol shots to take out. There's lots of pickups scattered throughout this level, which I found some of, ammo in the tree canopy and other bits tucked away in the corner, and then I died, and decided it wasn't worth my time getting again. Moving swiftly on using the zipline out of the aviary, we land in front of a statue of the Joan of Arc. There were posters dotted around the jungle area, including one for Joan, but I'm not an expert in French history, so I don't fully understand the reference. She was a military leader in France a long time ago, but that's pretty much as far as my knowledge goes. The other posters from the level are beautifully designed as well. Eventually we drop into a dark hole, a cave filled with green goo and more of our holy chested friends, and mutants suspended above ditches. This is where I got really confused. What did I need to do? Even though I found the invisible platform in front of the holy guy, the hand icon didn't appear for me initially. Maybe I was just outside of the range for it. But anyways, tuck the Hand of Wrath more into his hole and we get to the level ending. In short, It's a Madhouse is a level with a gorgeous, colourful setting with the perfect balance of exploration, interesting setting, and effortless progression. Number 6. Highland Fling. Welcome to Scotland, the land of Celts, haggis and typically passion we reign. The first level in the expansion Highland Fling brings us to the Scottish Highlands for reasons unknown yet. Anyways, Lara gets dropped off by Scotland's most well-known and popular helicopter carrier, Union Jack Airways. I may be slightly biased as this level is based in one of the countries I call home. The colours are absolutely beautiful, the fiery autumnal leaves, stunning sound design, the pattering of rain, apt decor with crests, flags and low-hanging fog. One slight inaccuracy though is the sunniness of this level. Scotland is typically a lot more grey, although maybe Lara's just chosen a good day to visit. We come across a river which requires precise platforming and jumps to get the more challenging pickups. Unfortunately, an area that I encountered a bug still this late after release. If you don't go hunting too far off the beaten path, the guards at the top of the hill are relatively easy to go down, with the pistols along with their dog companions and the birds over the bridge. The bridge and the castle area itself is one massive puzzle which is picturesque. Firstly, you need to pull the switches to open timed doors which reveal a set of serpent doors requiring keys. I missed a timed door here, but after shooting out more guards there's a neat section with quicksand that you'll need to figure out along with mysterious pillars with carvings. I'm not sure the significance of these pillars, but they do appear multiple times throughout the level. After finding one of the keys, called a thistlestone, and after making our way through the vine walls in the castle, we can proceed through to the next time door. And this damn dog statue gave me a bloody fright, and I learned not to pat any dog statue without checking if it's real first. We still need another thistlestone though to open the doors, which we can get at the tippy top of the castle. I had some weird bug above the green goo pool which prevented Lara from grabbing the monkey bars, but eventually I figured it out. Before we progress upwards though, peek through the bars and you're rewarded with stunning views. And the Loch Ness Monster! A neat Easter egg for the level. Making your way past the surprise boulder and some clambering later and you'll reach the top and the next thistlestone with more impressive views. A slide gives you a shortcut back to the doors and the level ends. As much as I thoroughly enjoyed this level, despite its lack of story, it's a refreshing shift from the main game, although I feel as though I didn't experience it in full, so it's a definite revisit in future. Number 5. Coastal Village. Next up on Lara's extremely inefficient travels, we land in the South Pacific Islands. Although I reckon the location is more like Southeast Asia, as we can see on the map. The dots are around somewhere like the Philippines or Indonesia. Just a little tad too far west to be considered a Pacific island nowadays, but maybe geographically it was seen different in the 90s. After our antics in the desert, Lara's come to dip her toes in a different kind of sand. And maybe do a little detour and look for the third artifact, maybe? There isn't much driving this level forward until the very end where it gets compelling, but we'll get to that shortly. This is yet another example of a level with diverging paths to start with. I did start with going through the jungle, but I wasn't sure whether the tribesmen functioned in the same way the prisoners do in the Nevada section. Tolerant, here to help. This is not the case, and they definitely do not want disturbed. So I reloaded and explored the rest of the stunning beach and lagoon, found the smuggler's key and made my way through the hut. Again, like the River Ganges, the choice of paths vastly increases players' hunger for replayability, which I enjoy how it's used frequently enough to push replay value, but not to the extent that it's a chore. Apart from being jump scared again, this time by a skeleton. That never gets me wanting to replay. The platforming in the next section is simple. Go grab some harpoon ammo in the pool, being guarded by some crocs, avoid the tribesmen that are shooting you with poison darts, all while traversing vines, monkey bars and some dodgy jumps. Taking the bridges across the jungle path, which falls short in the remaster, as the eerie fog has disappeared, we stumble across a temple room, which I had the sneaking suspicion that I missed a lot in there, which I found out was true when I was writing this video. What a bummer. Saying that, there are quite a few varied pickups in this level. Again, a profit for being thorough, which you'll need because the tribesmen and traps will poison you more often than not. Eventually we find ourselves in a small village made of several sets of wooden huts, the tension setting in as the drum beats start to thump. Apart from the natives and the fake Medipack pickup, there isn't much of note in the actual village itself. Once we get closer to their swamp edge, I did hear someone calling Sheila, which I brushed off at the time. Progressing through the rooftops, Lara comes across a cave with an impassable fire trap. I really struggled here and in some other areas of the level due to the low light. I missed various buttons and levers which just stalled my progress. Again, could be fixed with the brightness slider, just saying. If you can stand the screeching chalkboard noise of the knives coming out of the walls, we eventually stumble across the treehouse and the origin of the Sheila shelter. Finally, we hit the end cutscene. We meet an Aussie dude whose leg is half missing, swatting flies away from his wound. He tells us his leg was chewed off by a tribesman, but he didn't see them in the dark. The jungle spooks him. His men are vanishing or fleeing every night after their plane crashed. Lara jokes he's a dessert and wants to help him cross the swamp, but he refuses due to the likelihood of being eaten alive by either bugs or natives, but not before he asks Lara for help moving his men away if she comes across them. This level is actually one of my favourites. We have everything that makes up classic Tomb Raider elevated by the end cutscene. It drives wonder about what caused the wound, giving Lara at least another reason to keep exploring beside the artifact. Number 4. High Security Compound. High Security Compound is a penultimate level set in Nevada and throws conventional Tomb Raider out the window and forces you to think stealthily, which can feel like a very narrow approach. Until its satisfying third act, that is. Lara wakes up in a prison cell with minimal belongings, making her truly vulnerable for the first time ever. I don't think we've ever come across this situation in the series so far. It's very clear therefore what her mission is. Find our bag and escape this hellhole. Going through the lasers in the cell is counterintuitive, but this is Lara's ticket out of here. The guard clocks you quickly and it becomes a race to get as far away from as possible. Flicking various switches on the wall establishes a mechanic that's not only unique but was delightful to me. The other prisoners' cells spring wide open and they get to become Lara's right-hand men, doing all the dirty work. Apparently Lara can't swing a punch but can walk through spikes. I don't know. I don't make the rules, don't ask. Convicts are strategically placed where we need to get rid of the guards, to which they trade a few punches or shots are fired. But occasionally a one-hit kill from a Michael Schofield is enough to take them out. Once Mike takes out the guards, some of them will drop crucial items like keycards to progress through the increasing number of forking, albeit less vertical paths. Dropping into a guarded area with little places to hide, and the setting creates an unnerving tension that's elevated by the sound of your heartbeat and the metallic clangs here and there. This feels more like Tomb Raider 1 and 2. The corridors and wider areas like the mess hall are very distinct, so I wasn't easily lost. Tie this together with other elements of the level and we've got a perfectly balanced challenge, but not too absolutely convoluted like we've seen on occasion thus far. Speaking of convoluted though, again, the lack of cutscenes and pulling levers, like when this room gets filled with water, are grinding my gears. Combine this with an unclear pulley puzzle and panels that blend in with textures and the darkness just doesn't help the level flow. I really thought you had to ride on the pulley, but it's actually the opposite. You need to avoid it and use the monkey bars instead. Tomb Raider 1 and 2 done environmental storytelling better in my eyes, but this feels like a return to that form. Think about how sprawling the facility is, with a small prison population and a high volume of guards and lasers, and turrets used for security and targeting passing spacecraft. It makes this place seem like it's a big deal, taken really seriously, more than some ordinary penitentiary, which ties into the strange sights that we saw back in the Nevada desert level. The fire under the drop hole from the stove and extractor fan builds up a more believable environment, along with the very 90s trope of using circuit board textures to symbolize how super high tech this place is. There aren't a great number of pickups in this level. We don't really need ammo, and it's really a replenishment of what little MIDI packs you'll use, plus flares. Until we are introduced to the Desert Eagle, a powerful pistol that quickly became my favourite weapon so far. It takes down guards and then reintroduce puppies with ease, although the deafening soundtrack when Lara's reunited with her ransacked backpack is cathartic. She's back to the powerful badass we know, and she's ready for some payback. We finish up by bursting at the surface, into the orange glow of the desert with the hypnotic sound of cicadas. You can almost feel the stifling heat compared to the cool metallic interior of the compound. Lara manages to escape the facility by hiding in the back of a truck loaded with MG-12 crates. These crates are apparently an Easter egg for Majestic 12, the code name for a secret committee created in 1974 by US President Harry Truman to investigate UFO sightings. The guards locking up the back doors have 51 badges on their uniforms, confirming the Area 51 theory I had so far. Cracking a can of juice she found in the truck, Lara, jolted by the exhilaration, makes herself comfy for the ride ahead. The high security compound is an ineffecable level because of its unique styling and the fact that it's not tomb raiding, which is a little weird to say, but the whole of Nevada is just a little weird, and the Area 51 setting just generally intrigues me. Number 3. Area 51. The truth is out there.
At least it is in Lara's universe. Area 51 confirms the existence of aliens and brings some new mechanics
that take this level to one of the best in the game. After escaping the high security compound, Lara finds herself in a dark room, quickly confronted by guard after guard. For once, my lack of saving worked in my favour. Attempting to sneak around didn't quite work. The guards made a mockery of me, and if I did stay alive long enough, doors would just shut right in front of me. Then I realised I can't necessarily use my favoured tactic of stealth. The guards need to be taken out, and quickly, to see the treasure that awaits beyond those doors. Otherwise, they raise alarms, lasers, turrets arm, and doors go into lockdown mode, missing out on the MP5 as well as a good few ammo top-ups. Not only that, but you can also get the grenade launcher, the shotgun, and the harpoon gun if you haven't picked them up previously.
along with oodles of medipacks, so any thorough exploring is well compensated.
We've already established the new approach, but I also need to mention the other new mechanics. I barely used one, being the drop after button presses, which came as a huge surprise. I was expecting the doors in front of me to just spring open.
I hope this continues to be used sparingly, as the shock factor from it is, well, shocking.
The thought that this could be a seemingly normal military setup is quickly extinguished when you realise the rest of the facility is built underground and hiding aliens, but Lara doesn't know that yet. Actually, she doesn't acknowledge their existence throughout the whole game, which is kind of weird. You think she would have mentioned it to someone, but maybe it's an oversight or a sign of more cut content. Who knows, but anyway, the spinning traversing laser beams are a whole novel thing which are horrifying, but provide light in dark areas in case you forgot your flare, which tips the scale in their favour, I guess. Especially when they usually come with mini packs. Also, to add to the jump scare tactics, guards get released from bloody doors while you're trying to figure the place out if you step too close. The good news is that our prisoner friends are back, this time in a padded cell that he's clearly trying to escape from. Although something bugs me about why they're here. In the high security compound, we come across a much higher population of prisoners, but why split them off into this facility too? The train car suggests that they may use them to transport them between the facilities, but this is never confirmed. I absolutely adore the setting in this level. As a fan of sci-fi and having a sci-fi themed tomb that we're raiding, it was made for people like me. Despite personally ranking it highly, I can understand why some may have gripes. The maze that's under the missile is initially unclear, but once we come across the burner, then the penny drops that we need to blast it out of here. There are tons of CDs, keycards, switches, fuses, and more switches to figure out how to move that missile. Plus, there's a significant amount of backtracking.
This adds to the fatigue I can sometimes feel going through a typical Tomb Raider level.
Although with a distinctive design throughout this level, it wasn't discouraging. The setting really carried it through for me, especially the reveal of the spaceship. Seriously, bloody cool.
If you don't fry Lara because of those enraging fixed camera angles, seeing the launch in the cutscene makes the convoluted layout of the level a little bit more forgiving.
But it doesn't end there. To close out the level, we need to get inside the spaceship. But at this point, it seems like busy work, but I'll allow it because I'm intrigued about what's in there. The alien reveal was incredible and the mystery taken up a notch when you discover 2 orcas in a tank, like some sort of private alien SeaWorld. The remaster slightly ruins the realization that you can swim with them though, because you can see a vague blue glow from the crystal, but the real fun is trying to get to them. You'll need to perfectly platform your way to the entrance, avoid deadly and fast laser traps, go for a lovely swim, and then do the same in reverse. I did have to use a guide, but it was so gratifying when you got there. I mean, look at them. They're so cute. Lastly, you get to explore the spaceship, where a door is opened at the bottom, granting us access to the slimy, visceral entryway, similarly seen in Tomb Raider 1's level Atlantis. Once we've dealt with several MPs with assault rifles, we're inside the high-tech command center. The seats could be something out of the Enterprise, with the next artifact taking pride of place. Element 115. Number 2. Nevada Desert. Nevada Desert brings us to the first of the levels set in, you guessed it, Nevada, although I have a bone to pick about the setting. As per the title, Nevada Desert, the level that happens in Nevada, yeah? With me so far? Yeah? Right, now tell me why then we have the images in the distance of Monument Valley, which is on the northeastern border of Arizona, sharing a state line with Utah. Game. Never did I think my road trip planning would result in me finding this geographical oversight. The game clearly takes inspiration from the Western United States, one of my favourite places in the world, and I admit that I am biased in loving this level for the setting alone, but the inspiration taken from Arches National Park and Hoover Dam are just the icing on the cake for me. Not only the setting, but the huge graphical improvements in the remaster blew me away. The biggest difference actually being that things are just a lot more rounded now. Lara's mission is clear now, to claim the rest of the artifacts. With style. I mean, look at those combats. I don't know if she can ever beat this outfit. Starting off in the semi-open desert area, we tackle birds and snakes and encounter an easily missed but rewarding secret before we go to the upper level. This is where it got really compelling as an unidentified flying object whizzes over our heads, hinting at something Area 51-y. This happens several times throughout the level, reinforcing the idea that we're actually dealing with aliens. Being a kid in the 90s and our fascination with the weird taught me to avoid quicksand and that several people's cousins were abducted by a UFO. The long jump over to the bunker genuinely baffled me and I did have to look at a guide to get through it, but the level was generally well balanced in terms of difficulty. The canyon gives a platforming puzzle that isn't super difficult and has many nooks and crannies to explore with rewards on ledges and in the lower river. Once you see the detonator, then we understand Lara's immediate goal is more than just traversing through a level, but blowing part of it to smithereens too. Keep exploring the caves behind waterfalls and dark corners and the game will gift you the usual ammo or medu packs. And the sweet Uzis. Firm favourite of mine from the previous two titles, but I think is overshadowed by the exceptional power of the Desert Eagle. The most difficult part of the level is driven by a character flaw of mine. Not looking. The bloody switch at the dam to open the gates had me stuck for ages and again could only be rectified not with glasses or opening my eyes, but a guide. Yet again. Several times. Once Lara obtains a detonator key after taking out what I believe are the first humanoid enemies of the game, I was quite surprised that it didn't end there. We're then presented with a compound with more goons, a sexy giraffe printed quad bike, and electric fences that really work. This part of the level felt like it was there just to pad it out. Filling up the water tank to access the compound properly was a really roundabout way to get us access to the quad bike and progress to the end of the level. I understand it makes it more realistic, that it's more difficult to access where we need to go, but this was a notable balance shift. We could have got a similar effect from the detonator blowing a hole in the fence and accessing the compound that way. Once we're in though, the quad bike feels a whole lot easier to finesse to your liking, probably due to the shift in environment. From tight paths and ramps requiring perfect moves in the River Ganges to the more forgiving nature of the desert. Lara finishes by flinging herself over the fence, knocking her unconscious. She's carried by two guys with MP badges, which I just learned writing this stands for military police. There's still some dodgy musical cues throughout the game, but this one here with the snake genuinely made me think I was about to be attacked by something else. Speaking of music, it's utilised sparingly to its advantage, although I found it was deafening in some areas and outstayed its welcome. Add on technical glitches, getting stuck in quicksand, and bug dropping from a ledge, I really think you can start to see the polish of the game wear off, which is a shame as some could be game breaking for your save. I didn't gel well with India like some others did, but the change in environment in Nevada revived my enthusiasm to continue my Tomb Raider journey. Number 1. Crash Site. Crash Site gives us a side quest to find the Aussie Dudes team and get them to safety. The level follows directly on from Coastal Village and we need to utilise the map our friend gave us to cross the swamp. The rippling swamp is quite generous. If you miss the blocks that are safe but are close to it, you can hop up to the safe zones. If you're adventurous, then you can get some MP5 ammo in the left hand corner. Progressing further into the jungle, we come across something I've missed since the first game, the dinosaurs. We're approached by a velociraptor who's easy enough to manage and prompted the thought, if the Australian guy didn't see who was nibbling on his leg, is it possible it was the dinos? They could also be responsible for taking out his team.
Because we're being hunted.
Finally, we come across the plane that crashed. Nice to know he wasn't lying to us. You can hear gunshots in the background and you can watch the military team take out some raptors at the rear end of the plane. The plane itself is an interesting setting with many ways to explore around, on top and eventually inside. Let's start with the surrounding area. The first area I came across was a cave containing a bunch of compies which set my spidey senses tingling. A small enemy for such a large area? Too big even for the raptors? Interesting. Continuing through the cave unveils a huge nest with some keys and dog tags in the centre belonging to Commander Bishop. Picking the item up triggers the surprise sting and the undeniable stomping of T-Rex feet, a terrific mini-boss and a high-five specifically to Tomb Raider 1. The animation when the Rex captures Lara is fantastic and bound to happen because Rexy is a tank and takes a lot of ammo to go down. Notably, there are no eggs or eggshells in the nest. Is this a nod to Jurassic Park 2's mum and baby combo? I enjoy the Jurassic Park references as a huge fan of the franchise, again, which raises the bar for me. Another area off to the side of Tomb lies. The trouble being, you need to get past the piranha-infested waters by climbing into the canopy to cross. This is a really distinctive, memorable moment. The military is still helping you to take out even more raptors on the ground. Climbing to the treetops, you'll come across even more raptors in the trees looking for fresh meat. The climbing walls aren't all that clear, but eventually you'll realise that you need to shoot down the raptor that's caught in a trap hanging above the water to distract the piranhas and swim across to the other side to get to the tomb. The animation, if you stick around to watch them swirling and swarming, is pretty neat too. In the tomb, there's You guessed it, more raptors, which come at you when you pull various switches in the bloomin' dark. Honestly, I think the devs loved a good bit of horror, because before rewarding you with Lieutenant Tucker's keys, and bam, another jump scare raptor. With all our keys in hand, it's time to get inside that plane. It's a little convoluted how, but above the door, shimmy along till you can climb up and then you're in. Another jump scare raptor, and then we hit the motherload. The mounted rocket launcher. This is an exhilarating end to the level, something we've never seen before. A constant flow of raptors, and you'd be lucky to have any surviving military men by the end of it. Apart from some slight confusion how to get out of the level, if you need to know, you need to shoot away the wall in the far left and you're ready to exit. This level was the realization that I was, for the most part, reveling with the game and enjoying my time after a weak iffy start in India. Bettered by Nevada and solidified here. Finishing off with a cutscene conversation with the native who promises not to eat Lara, since it's fasting day. So kind.
She quizzes him on his ancestors fleeing Antarctica, to which he tells her of a terrible evil that drove them out.
He describes Smythe, a white man, aka one of Darwin's crew, with a magic stone, who they ate and celebrate every year. How nice. Lara questions him once more about the artifact's whereabouts, but his chanting confirms he's not up for more discussion, and we hit the level end. And finally, to wrap up, let's look at the game overall. I'll look at the parts that are consistent throughout the original and remastered collection as a whole. Let's start with the not-so-goods. Tomb Raider 3 and the Lost Artifact isn't outstanding from start to finish, as I've just discussed. I can only describe it, as I have done multiple times, as a game of two halves. Some levels and areas are excellent examples of the Tomb Raider franchise, even some of the best we've seen so far, but others are very difficult, too long, convoluted, and generate a type of fatigue that I didn't experience in the first two games. Exploration can just be a chore, dare I say it, boring. The unbelievable levels with aliens and dinosaurs make it exciting instead of the raiding itself being the main attraction. The intro FMV looks to be remastered, but not all of them are. Not entirely surprising considering the first two games in the remastered collection are the same, but for a true remaster, I would have loved to have seen updated cutscenes throughout. Speaking of cutscenes, I felt a distinct reduction when pulling switches or levers for what happened or changed, making it more difficult to understand what each may be doing. Although this is a minor inconvenience at the worst of times, and we have guides at our fingertips. And another disappointment that is well documented. Some places are just too dark, some places are too light. There's quite a few comments about this online, with most suggesting to calibrate their monitors, which, to be honest, to be done properly needs a specialist piece of equipment that, quite honestly, is going to get used once and never again. But really, in modern gaming, how hard is it to introduce a brightness and contrast slider? It seems to me like a simple solution that would put the whole problem to bed. Speaking of inadequacies, I encountered several bugs more than a year after release. Scenery sometimes gets in the way, technical glitches, like getting stuck in quicksand, the hand icon can be really fussy to pick up and place items, and stuck camera angles, to name a few. They may have been there in the original game, but I feel a little bit shortchanged as some of these bugs can soft lock you from progressing. Never a good sign for any game. I'm not totally sold on the level selection either. I understand they were trying out something new, but Tomb Raider already has a vague enough story without it, so it's difficult to implement, especially considering it's the late 1990s. It's difficult enough to give you suitable cutscenes and story progression beats, no matter what order you choose. And now onto the parts of the game where it excels, although lots of this can be said of the first remaster trilogy in general. The loading level artwork is beautiful, although it does spoil what's to come. For example, Sophia appearing in the Wonderful Reunion. The modern controls are fantastic. I can't imagine going back to the original tank controls, but I love that we have the choice for those who have that muscle memory locked down. Saying that, the fixed camera angles become very annoying in the modern controls. An option to bypass them I would have really appreciated. The remastered graphics are stunning, although there is some atmosphere lost from the original game, which is something that is bound to happen with the remaster. Being able to press one button to shift between the original and remastered graphics is an innovative way to preserve history, but also make it relevant to the present day. And Lara's outfits are on point throughout the whole game. I want her wardrobe. The sound and music design is pretty much as good as the other games, with the usual music cues, tigers roaring and a beautiful new pistol soundtrack. The game keeps music generally to a minimum, which I adore as it adds to the tension. Saying that, the soundtrack can be extremely loud at times or even mistimed, which is disappointing to report this far down the line. And the fact that we have an easy way to play on modern systems with unlimited saves, the trophies, and the challenges that naturally go with it, and the relatively low price for the amount of gameplay that you get, gets the highest of praise from me. This is an excellent example of how remasters should be done.
As a whole, I really did enjoy my time with Tomb Raider 3 Remastered, although Tomb Raider 1 and 2 still rank much higher in my list of favourites. I am planning to return to the first trilogy to see the lock levels like All Hallows, and maybe even attempt for a platinum, so we'll see if my opinion changes after a few replays. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I know it's a divisive subject, but I'd love to hear from you. And if you couldn't tell already, writing this essay is a first time for me outside of an education setting, so from the bottom of my heart, if you've got this far, or even partway through, thank you. It's been a labour of love for several months. Thanks for watching. Bye! Sit within the snowy Why is it so hard? Part of me also wonders if this is a sign to slow down, please. I really don't know what I've written here. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. What does the sea... It's a shame Thames. Because the list of the level, you know? The list of the level. For immortality. For immortality. How can I not say that? Sorry, I just got flowers from Troy because it's my birthday today. My heart. He's so spoiled me today. It's been very nice. Even though I had to work this morning, which has been not nice, but you know. We're faced with a white snowsuit clad flamethrower. I'm gonna be honest, having a bloody mic propped up in a Christmas tree box probably isn't the way to be doing this video, but so this is Christmas, and the Christmas box came in useful for a change. Blow, 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 blow.